The mining station floated like rusted bones in the dark. Broken walls, blinking lights, and the smell of hot metal filled the air. On Dock 6, a human named Darren waited, arms crossed, next to the ship he had just fixed. He was tired, hungry, and angry. The alien merchant who owed him had not shown up for 2 days. Suddenly, the bay door opened. The merchant came through, limping, with 2 guards behind him. But he didn't bring credits, not even a single chip. Instead, he dragged a girl by her wrist. She wore tattered gray cloth. Her ankles were chained. Her long silver hair was tangled, her skin pale blue, bruises on her neck, but her eyes, bright violet, did not show fear. They stared straight into Darren's. "She's your payment," the merchant said. "Ship works fine. This girl is worth 3 times more than I owe." Darren's jaw clenched. "I don't want a slave." "No refund," the merchant laughed. "Take her or lose the deal." Darren looked at the girl again. She didn't flinch. She didn't beg. She didn't even blink. Something about her felt wrong, or maybe too calm. Most slaves cried, begged, or looked away. But this girl looked like she knew something no one else did. Without another word, Darren unlocked the chain from her ankle and walked away. The girl followed him, barefoot, without a sound. He could feel the merchant's eyes burning his back, but he didn't care. He hated slavers. He hated traitors. And he hated this day. Back on his ship, Darren pointed to a small cot in the corner. "You can rest there," he said. She didn't move. She kept standing, arms by her side, head high. "You're not a prisoner," Darren added. "You can sleep, eat. You're free now." Still, she didn't answer. But her eyes watched everything. The tools, the ship controls, the escape pods. He sighed, walked into the kitchen area, and returned with food. He placed it in front of her. She sat down quietly and started eating, slow and careful, like someone trained to hide hunger. "What's your name?" He asked. She looked up, chewing, then replied, "Valari." Just one word, no last name. Number. Planet. Nothing more. Darren didn't press. He sat nearby, watching the stars blink outside the window. Later that night, he locked his door out of habit, not fear. He didn't believe she would attack. But something about her silence put weight in the air. He laid on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand what he had just done. He didn't want to own anyone. He didn't want trouble. He just wanted peace, fix ships, earn some credits, stay out of war. Then he heard the soft knock. He opened the door. Valari stood there, her feet bare, arms crossed, eyes colder than before. "You should not have taken me," she said. Her voice wasn't scared. It wasn't soft. It was warning. "I didn't buy you," Darren replied. "I didn't even want you. You took me," she interrupted. "And now they will come." "Who will come?" She didn't answer. She walked back to her cot and sat down, back straight like a soldier. Darren stayed up all night, watching the radar. No ships. No signals. No alarms. But deep inside, something told him she was telling the truth. She wasn't normal. She wasn't what she seemed, and she wasn't safe. Not for him, not for anyone. The next morning, Darren walked into the control deck, expecting her to be gone. But Valari was already there, standing beside the main screen, watching star charts slide across the display. She had accessed the nav system without asking. She even set new waypoints, and worse, they were hidden. "How did you do that?" he asked. She looked over her shoulder, calm as ever. "You left the console unlocked. That's not the point. You're headed to Trade Station 9. That's not safe," she said. Darren stepped forward. "And how would you know what's safe?" She walked past him silent. But before leaving the room, she said one more thing. "They scan every ship at that port. You won't make it through with me aboard." His hands froze on the console. She was right. Trade Station 9 ran. Biometric scans on all passengers. Slaves, fugitives, and royal bloodlines, everything showed up. But how did she know? He turned to follow her. Hey, what are you really? She didn't stop walking. You'll find out soon. Later, as Darren worked under the ship, rerouting fuel lines, he heard movement above. Crawling, then soft metal clicks. He climbed out and looked up. Valari was on top of the ship, using a torch cutter and stripping parts from a defense drone. What are you doing? He shouted. She looked down with her hair blowing in the heat wind. You have 6 broken drones. I'm building one that works. That's military tech. It's Kirin tech, she replied. And I know how it works because it was built in my palace. Darren's heart jumped. She didn't even try to hide it now. He climbed up and sat near her as she rewired a core cell. Her hands were precise. No slave ever moved like that. Not with confidence. Not with knowledge. You're not a slave, he finally said. Var, I didn't. Look at him. No, I'm not. Then why didn't you run? She paused, then said, running is for those who still have something to return to. That answer hit him harder than he expected. Darren had seen broken people before, war refugees, burnt-out pilots, orphans from the Crimson Raids. But she wasn't broken. She was waiting for something or someone. That night, they sat near the fire exhaust, warming their hands. The stars above were cold and blue. Valari sat with her knees pulled up, silent. Why were you sold? He asked softly. She stared into the flame. Because I refused to obey. Darren leaned back. Who would sell someone like you? My own blood. She didn't say anything else. Darren stood and walked to the crate she had brought from the merchant's hold. He had left it untouched out of respect, but now, curiosity burned too bright. He popped the seal open. Inside, wrapped in silk, lay something glowing, a golden pendant shaped like a crescent moon. Around it was an emblem carved into metal. A bird flying over a crown. Darren felt his breath catch. He had seen that mark before. Not in person, in the history scrolls. On imperial orders. On warships during the Kirin Fleet Parade. That symbol belonged to the royal House of Veldan. She wasn't just lying low, she was royalty. He turned, eyes wide, mouth open. But she was already standing behind him. Her voice was cold now. Now, you know, you're one of them, Darren whispered. I was. She stepped past him, took the pendant, and placed it back inside. Then why are you here? He asked. Valari looked at him, and for the first time, her voice cracked. Not from fear, but from grief. Because they took everything from me. My crown, my home, and my name. But I'm still alive. And now they want to erase even that. Before Darren could speak, a sharp beep rang out from the comms panel. He rushed over. Incoming signal. A public bounty alert. He tapped the screen. And there it was. Her face. Alive. Wanted. With a reward so high. Even pirate kings would kill to claim it. She was no ordinary runaway. She was a hunted princess. And he was the fool who just became her only shield. Darren didn't sleep that night. The bounty alert repeated every 20 minutes across open channels. It included her image, her name, or what was left of it, and a message. Wanted for treason against the Kirin Empire, dead or alive. Reward could buy a small moon. And she was sitting on his ship, feet tucked under her, quietly sipping water like nothing had changed. You told me they'd come, Darren said, his voice low, almost shaking. You didn't say the entire empire would want you dead. Valari looked up, calm still. I told you not to take me, she said. That's not an answer, Darren snapped. Her eyes narrowed. Then ask the right question. Darren sat down. Across from her, the fire from the exhaust casting flickers over her face. Who are you, really? This time she answered without hesitation. Valari Tazan, daughter of Kirith Tan, emperor of the Kirin Star Thrones. Third in line before the coup. Marked as a traitor by my own stepmother, sold in silence, forgotten in chains. She unwrapped her wristband slowly, revealing something burned into her skin. A deep scar shaped like a Kirin royal seal, crossed out by fire. A cancellation mark. A royal execution without death. Darren stared at the mark, feeling something heavy press into his chest. I was traded for a broken favor, she said. No trial, no voice, just silence. She looked away, jaw clenched. My stepmother called it mercy. Said exile was better than death. But death would have been kinder. The room felt colder now. Even the warmth from the panels couldn't cut through the chill in the air between them. Darren rubbed his face. And that merchant, he didn't know? He knew exactly what I was, she said. He just thought I was no longer useful. Darren stood pacing now. This is insane. If that bounty is real, they're going to find you. Every hunter, every pirate, every desperate fool will be tracking your signal. They already are, she replied. That stopped him cold. He turned sharply. What? Villari stood now too. She moved across the room, graceful like someone trained in a palace hall. She opened her satchel and pulled out a metal orb, no larger than a plum. It blinked once, then unfolded into a glowing cube. They installed a tracker inside my collar when I was sold, she said. I disabled it last night. Darren stared at the device. You could have told me. I did, you just didn't. Listen. His hands curled into fists. Not from anger at her, from the mess he had walked into. He was just a mechanic. A ship tech. He fixed broken systems, not royal conspiracies. But now she was here. And that made him part of it. Why? Me? He asked. You had the chance to run. Why follow me? Villari's expression softened, just a little. Because you looked at me like I was still human. Darren blinked. Others look at me like a prize, she said. Or a threat. Or a curse. You looked at me like I still mattered. Like I wasn't just what they made me. Darren sat down again. His voice was tired now. You're asking me to fight the Kirin Empire. No, she said. I'm asking you to survive it, with me. Suddenly, alarms shrieked through the ship. Darren jumped up, running to the control panel. An unauthorized signal had pinged them. Small ship. Stealth mode. Closing fast. He scanned the ID. No name. No flag. But the power signature matched a known bounty hunter model, war-grade weapons, fast engines, and no mercy. They found us, he said. Villari was already pulling on a jacket and grabbing the small plasma dagger from her satchel. Can take the back entrance, she said. Draw them out. You launch when they go for me. No, Darren said firmly. You don't understand. I do, he cut in. And I'm not letting them take you. Villari stared at him. Darren typed in a code, switching power from the engines to the defense grid. The ship's old, but I built it from scrap. It won't outrun them, but it'll make them bleed. She stepped forward, voice quiet. Why are you doing this? He looked at her, really looked. Not as a stranger, not as a burden, but as someone who had been thrown away and still stood tall. Because no one deserves to be forgotten in chains, he said. The ship rocked as weapons fired in the distance. Shields held, for now Villari gripped the edge of the console. They won't stop, she whispered. Darren locked eyes with her. Then neither will I. The sky outside turned red dot, not from sunset, from laser fire. Darren's ship shook as the bounty hunter vessel fired again. A second blast slammed into the outer hull, throwing sparks across the corridor. He ran to the control panel, slamming a switch that redirected power to the rear shield. We can't take another hit, he shouted. Var. I gripped the wall for balance. Her eyes locked on the enemy ship chasing them through the asteroid belt. They're forcing us towards Sector 7, she said. It's a kill zone, no comms, no patrols. They want to trap us where no one will hear us die. Darren cursed under his breath and jerked the ship to the right. The engines howled as they dipped between two massive asteroid chunks, narrowly avoiding impact. "Can you fly through this?" she asked. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. He yanked the lever, and the ship dove into the rocks. Behind them, the bounty hunter ship fired again, missing by inches, and clipped one of the asteroid fragments instead. But it didn't slow down. "They're fast," Darren muttered. "They're better trained," Valari added. "But they don't know me." She dashed toward the cargo hold. "Where are you going?" He called after her. "To fight." Darren followed. She had already ripped open a supply panel and was pulling out drone parts, wiring them together with calm speed. "What are you doing?" "I told you," she said. "I grew up in a palace, but I trained for war. My tutors were assassins. My guards were spies. My toys were weapons." She snapped the drone body closed, twisted the last wire, and pressed the activator. The small machine floated into the air, blinking red. "I call this one a firefly," she said. "It's pretty until it bites." She handed him the drone. "Launch it when we exit the field. It'll release static and fake our engine trail." He took it, stunned. "Why do you know how to do this?" She stared at him. "Because when your own blood wants you dead, you don't learn poems, you learn how to disappear." The ship rumbled again. Back in the cockpit, Darren saw a break in the asteroid field ahead. "Get ready," he said as soon as they hit open. "Space," he tossed the drone. The moment it cleared the rear hatch, it split into three, each copy sending out fake heat signals and spinning in different directions. The bounty hunter ship followed one of them. Guns blazing, Valari watched the radar. It worked. Darren slumped back, breathing hard. "That gives us 10 minutes, if we're lucky." She leaned close. "Then let's not waste it." They set coordinates for a small outpost, a dead zone no one visited anymore, once a battlefield, now just broken metal floating in silence. As they traveled, Darren stared at the stars ahead, but his mind was still stuck on what she had said. "Why would your own father sell you?" He finally asked. She was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke. "My father was poisoned before I was born. My stepmother took the throne in his name. I was raised in silk, but everything around me was sharp. They taught me how to smile in public and how to kill in secret." She closed her eyes, voice lower now. "The night I turned 16, I was supposed to bond with a noble house. I refused. She said I had betrayed the throne. The next morning I was gone." Darren looked over her. She wasn't crying, but something in her voice was trembling. "I thought if I stayed quiet, if I obeyed, they would leave me alone. I was wrong." They reached the outpost, and Darren steered the ship into a broken hangar, using wreckage to cover their presence. As the engines powered down, the silence around them grew thick. "VAR, I moved to the back and opened the cargo ramp." "Where are you going?" Darren asked. She looked over her shoulder. "They won't stop chasing us. I need to draw them away. You can run. You still have a life to return to." He stepped forward. "I'm not letting you face them alone." She raised an eyebrow. "You barely survived this flight. What will you do next time? Throw a wrench at them?" He smiled. "Depends how close they get." She laughed for the first time since they met. Not a full laugh, just a breath of it. But real. And then her smile faded. "I don't want your death on me, human," she said. Darren shook his head. "Too late, I'm in this now." She hesitated. Then she reached into her satchel and pulled out a small black box. "What is that?" he asked. She opened it. Inside, a silver chip glowed faintly. "It's not just a tracker," she whispered. "It's a royal command key." Darren stared. "If it falls into the wrong hands," she said, "they can unlock Kieran warfleets. That's why they're hunting me. Not for punishment, for control." He swallowed hard. "And now I've handed it to you," she added. "Because I trust you more than I trust myself." Outside, a distant beep sounded from the radar. Another ship had arrived. The outpost was silent, dead metal, drifting in space, like the bones of an old war. Inside one broken hangar, Darren worked fast, hands covered in grease, sweat rolling down his neck. Valari crouched beside him, linking power cables into the hidden control panel behind a damaged wall. They were building something from scraps, a jammer strong enough to hide them from scanners, but time was running out. The ship spotted earlier had stopped moving. No lights, no signal. Just floating, like it was watching. They're waiting, Valari said. For what? Darren asked. For us to breathe wrong. She pressed her hand on the panel, and the jammer hummed to life. The radar went dark. For now. They were invisible. They moved back into the ship. Valari opened her bag and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. A robe, dark blue with silver patterns that shimmered like stars. She laid it gently on the table. Darren stared at it. That's not just clothing. No, she said. It's a symbol, a mark of the royal line. Worn only when claiming the right to lead. Darren stepped closer. You're going back, aren't you? I never stopped planning to, she replied. He shook his head. You'll die if you return. I'll die if I don't. There was silence. Then Valari looked at him, really looked, not with suspicion, not with that cold, noble mask, but with something softer. You don't have to be here, she said. I can go alone. Darren didn't answer at first. He sat down across from her. I used to believe people like you lived in stories, he said. Princesses in towers, warships in the sky, noble blood. He looked up at her. But you bleed. You cry. You get scared. You laugh when I'm stupid. You're not a story. You're real. Valari smiled faintly, then looked away. I was raised in gold, she whispered, but I never felt worth anything. Not until now. Her hand brushed over the command key resting in the black box. Darren leaned forward. Why did you give that to me? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, because if I fall, I want the galaxy's future in the hands of someone who sees more than bloodlines. Suddenly, the radar beeped again, but this time it wasn't the ship that had arrived earlier. It was 3 more. Darren rushed to the console. 3 signatures. 2 light class, 1 heavy. No response signals. Valari was already moving. They've called backup. They're going to close in and burn the whole outpost down. She grabbed her blade. Darren grabbed the small pulse rifle from beneath his cot, but neither of them ran to the fight. They went to the storage room. Inside was the emergency drop pod. Small, fast, and built for one. You're not using that, Darren said. Yes, I am, Valari replied. You'll die. She looked at him with fierce calm. And if I stay here, we both die. He stepped forward. There has to be another way. She handed him a chip. What's this? It's linked to the Kirin Embassy beacon. If I activate the robes, signal from orbit, it'll connect to every loyal fleet in this sector. You said that would bring war. I said it would bring choice, she replied. The people have to see I'm alive. Then they'll choose who to follow. Outside, the outpost shook. The enemy had started firing. Darren pulled her into the corridor, shielding her from falling sparks. You can't go alone, he said. She reached up, touched his face with trembling fingers. You gave me back something no one else ever did, she whispered. What's that? She smiled, hope. Then she pressed a button. The drop pod's door opened. Before he could stop her, she stepped inside. The pod launched, fire bursting from the sides, shooting upward into the black sky. Darren watched it disappear through the shattered ceiling of the outpost. He stood frozen until the blast hit. The heavy enemy ship had fired a missile straight at the station. It missed the core by inches, but the shockwave sent metal flying. Darren hit the wall hard. Pain shot through his side. He dragged himself to the comms. Unit. Her signal was still active. She was still alive. but she was flying straight toward the capital ring, the heart of Kiran's space. He activated the beacon she had given him. A flash burst through the room, blue light scanning his face, then the chip, then the command key dot, and then it spoke. Identity recognized. Command link accepted. Royal Air in transit. His heart pounded. The galaxy would know now. Valari Tazan, the forgotten princess, was alive, and someone had just declared her return. The drop pod sliced through the clouds like a burning star. Valari gripped the harness with both hands, her pulse racing. The descent wasn't smooth. Heat alarms screamed, metal panels rattled, but her eyes stayed focused on the capital ring far below. Kiran's space, the place that once called her a princess, then turned her into prey. As the pod neared the surface, defense cannons scanned it. She had 15 seconds before they locked on. Valari reached for the robe beside her and snapped the seal. The moment the royal crest shimmered in full light, the auto system inside the pod broadcast a single phrase across all channels. This vessel carries Valari Tazan, rightful heir to the Kiran throne. The cannons froze. The pod passed through untouched. It slammed into a mountain slope just outside the central command city. The door exploded open, smoke rising from the crash, and Valari rolled out onto cold ground. She coughed, staggered to her feet, and pulled the robe over her shoulders. Within minutes, the air shimmered. 3 guard drones appeared in front of her, followed by a hovering gunship. The side opened. A woman stepped out. Tall, pale skin like polished glass, hair braided in dark silver, a face carved with power. Valar, I didn't move. The woman's voice was cold. You should have stayed forgotten. Valari narrowed her eyes. Hello, stepmother. Empress Kalev stepped closer, guarded but amused. You must know this won't end well. Valari reached behind her and tapped the small pulse beacon Darren had built into her belt. That's your mistake, she said. You think this is still about you and me. Kalev raised an eyebrow. Then what is it about? A sharp hum filled the air. Valari's robe lit up, bright silver and deep blue pulsing like a beating heart. The Kiran crest projected into the sky above them. Across the city, hundreds of people looked up. Across warships, satellites, and broken palaces, the old signal blared, and across thousands of star systems, one truth spread. She was alive. Back at the outpost, Darren's screen lit up with responses, messages, flooding in from rebel fleets, noble houses, and old soldiers. Some were afraid, some were angry, but many were loyal, and all of them were listening. Now Darren loaded emergency fuel into the ship. The station walls groaned around him as more enemy ships circled. Then a voice came through the radio, deep, mechanical. We have the outpost surrounded. Human, surrender or burn. Darren smiled, flipping the ignition. She told me not to throw a wrench at you, he said. So I'll throw a sun instead. He launched the ship straight toward the nearest cruiser, dropped an overcharged plasma core behind him, and spun away. The core exploded, not enough to destroy the cruiser, but enough to blind its sensors. Vanished into deep space, heading toward Kiran Prime. He wasn't going to let her fight alone. Back on the mountain, Empress Kalev drew a thin blade from her sleeve. You came here to die for a symbol, she said. Vel Ar. I pulled her own blade. Short, curved, old. No, she said. I came here to remind the galaxy what it meant. Kalev lunged. The two collided, blade against blade, sparks flying with every strike. Valari wasn't as strong. She wasn't as fast, but she had something Kalev never had: purpose. And pain. And memory. She fought like someone who had bled in silence and finally found her voice. Their battle drew the eyes of guards, of drones, of civilians. No one stopped it. No one dared. The moment Valari knocked Kalev's blade to the ground, she didn't strike again. She turned her back to her and looked up at the city. She shouted, You followed fear. You followed Lies, now choose truth. The people watching stepped forward, one by one. They bowed, not because they were ordered, because they remembered her. VLAR. I didn't smile. She stepped down the hill, robe dragging behind her in the wind, and said, "To the guards, take her. Give her the trial she denied me." Kalev screamed, but they obeyed. That night, Valari sat alone in the command tower, robe off, hands trembling, eyes staring out over her home. Then the door opened, and Darren stood there, clothes scorched, face tired but smiling. "You made it," she said. "You lit up the whole sky." He replied. She ran to him. No titles, no ranks. Just two people, both pulled from chains, both still standing. The great hall of Piran Prime hadn't heard a true cheer in years. Now it shook with thousands of voices, echoing through the marble and steel corridors. Civilians lined the walls. Old commanders in faded armor stood tall. Even the palace drones hovered quietly, recording everything. And at the center of it all stood Valari Tassan, no longer a girl in chains, no longer a forgotten heir, but a ruler reborn. She wore the robe fully now. The crest of the empire rested at her chest, glowing with energy from the beacon system reactivated by Darren. She had not taken the throne yet, not officially. Not until one final step. Darren stood behind the columns, out of sight. His clothes still carried dust from the outpost. His hands were cut from the battle. He wasn't part of this world. Not really, but somehow. She had made him part of it. The chamber quieted as Valari raised her hand. "I was once dragged through this palace." "In silence," she said. "A prisoner dressed like a daughter, a traitor marked by lies. Today I return not to take revenge, but to restore truth." The people lowered their heads. She stepped down the stairs toward the center of the hall. "I do not come alone," she said, "and I do not wear this robe because of my blood. I wear it because I survived what it tried to erase." Her voice trembled just once, but she held firm. "There was one who stood by me," she continued. "One who saw me not as a crown, not as a weapon, but as a person." Now the crowd turned. I walked to the edge of the stage and called out, "Darren." He froze. People looked around, confused. Whispers rose. Then he stepped forward, slowly, unsure, each bootstep echoing louder than the last. He stopped in front of her. "You shouldn't bring me into this," he whispered. She smiled. "I already did." Then she turned to the people. "This is the one who carried a stranger through fire, who shielded me from death, who gave me back the right to be human." Darren looked at the sea of faces. He had stood before angry smugglers, bounty hunters, even alien warlords, but this was different. These weren't enemies. These were people waiting to believe again. Valari pulled the command key from her robe and placed it into the throne's console. It lit up. The signal pulsed across the empire. Loyal ships aligned. Former enemies fell silent. The galaxy paused. I looked back at him. "You were never supposed to be part of this world," she said. "But it is better now because of you." Then she knelt, and the entire chamber gasped, a princess kneeling before a mechanic. Not because of tradition, because of choice. She held out her hand. "You gave me freedom, Darren. I give you my loyalty." He didn't take her hand. He reached for her shoulder instead and gently pulled her up. "You never needed saving," he said. "You just needed to be seen." A tear slipped down her cheek. And for the first time in front of her people, Valari laughed, light, real, not trained for courts or war councils. The chamber erupted in cheers. But far beyond the hall, a quiet signal blinked on a distant moon. Inside a dark room, a cloaked figure watched the broadcast, face hidden in shadow. He turned to his guards. "She's stronger than expected." The guard asked, "Should we move against her?" The man paused, then smiled faintly. "No, let her rise, let her lead. She thinks the crown is a victory, But it is only the first piece. He leaned closer to the screen, voice low, because the game is far from over. Back in the capital, as stars glowed beyond the windows, Darren and Valari stood side by side. No chains, no war cries. No throne between them. Just two people. A human who fixed broken things, and a princess who refused to stay broken. And together, they were ready for whatever came next.